And matter of fact, it was the second one she owned in the town. And the YMCA, my grandmother helped put that YMCA in place, right?
Which on
Wow.
the west side over there?
Yes, yes. And
Wow.
then I mean, we had been in we've been in Rochester for a lot of years. I mean, and I still got tons of family that actually live there now.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
my mom's a Monroe High graduate.
okay.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a blessing. Hey, well, we are actually live. We are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We want to welcome you, Curtis, to
Thanks.
our broadcast. Wealth through wholesaling. But we cover a lot of other topics. We like to share that wholesaling is the gateway drug to real estate.
It
Once you
truly
get that
is.
bite, you want to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So Keith, can you share with Curtis a little bit about our followers and really what we hope to get accomplished in our quick interview?
Yeah. So basically Curtis is our followers are typically newer wholesalers, even newer than us, looking to get, their first deal, get pointed in that right direction, or seeing how they can better educate themselves to get in position to make that next deal, and hope to have some inspiration from you, and maybe a gym or two. I know you ain't gonna give us all of it, but just something, just give them something they can hold on to, and
I'll
that
try.
that a
Try.
person that's actually doing deals does.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's good. Yeah.
Curtis, if you could get us started with just telling the folks out there a little bit about who you are and your roots, and how you transition your journey into real estate.
Well, what's interesting is that years ago, I think maybe um, during the last market crash, my dad had an idea. He bought one of those not a host center, but he bought one of those where you go door knocking and talk to people about pre foreclosures, and when he bought it, I was like, yeah, I did a few of them, but man, I was like, man, this is tough work. So I never did get anything materialized from it, And I look back, years later, I look back on that, and that probably was my first introduction to real estate. And then years later, I decided, okay, I'm gonna find what I might really like in real estate, and try to take advantage of it. And one of the things I found is that there were some financial obstacles that were in the way, even though I was, I'm a computer engineer. I'm an architect who I design, from a pre-sales engineering perspective, I design data centers and data center type solutions for customers, right? All multi-million dollar opportunities. But one of the things there was a financial barrier to get into real estate the way that I wanted to. But I took a couple of mentorships. I took one which was a Sharif Medawar commercial real estate mentorship, and then I took a Michael Blanc multifamily syndications and private placement memorandum. And and both of those mentorships were really great, but they still had that obstacle. And the obstacle was, if you don't have any cash to, as an entry point to get in it, either you were stuck making small amounts of money to manage the projects. And I just wasn't into that. I said, for me, if I'm going to get into it, I want to get a 200 unit, 200 door property, and I want to I want to take a majority stake in it, or what's the use in even doing it if I was going to make someone else rich and not have a huge opportunity to grow myself. So fast forward about a year after that, the mentorship, being on Bigger Pockets and other things, I ran across one of Jamil's ads, and I harassed him via Facebook Messenger before he got a VA to actually take over that part. I was harassing him on there for probably a month and a half, continually asking him questions,
Right.
continually
Okay.
trying to figure out kind of, was this really what you're saying it is, right? In trying to be as transparent as I was about what my goals were. the good thing about it was, is I mean, you guys know Jamil. It worked out really well because he's super transparent and he's really giving with his time. So I decided I was going to jump in and take a chance on it. You know, from a wholesaling perspective, um, wholesaling for me from the outside, there was a lot of negative connotations in regards to wholesaling, right? And that's one of the things for me that I think is a that I kind of got in. You know, you get into wholesaling, and once you get into it, you realize what you're doing. If you get into wholesaling for the right reasons, and you're trying to help people sell their properties who are in some terrible situations, and then you're trying to help a buyer get a property that's off market at a deal so that they could either, if they have clients, because like a lot of my clients, um, most recently, especially in the Atlanta marketplace, are agents who are also contractors who are helping clients find properties, you know. And so if you're in it for the right reason, you're trying to help people and you're being really transparent about the process, then wholesaling is a good thing, right? And but before I got into it, I had all these thoughts about wholesaling from other people, you know, and they're like, oh, well, they're robbing people of their properties and they're forcing them to buy these properties for, you know, to sell these properties for cheaper than they need to be selling them for. So I know when you know, in talking to Jamil, one of the things I got from it was that if you do this, if you do wholesaling the right way for the right reasons, you'll get great results, right? And for me, that was one of the things that initially, as I got started out in wholesaling, I always kept in mind. And to this day, that's the way that I do deals currently, right? I try to be, um, when I get deals, whether it's a deal that I get direct to seller or the deal that I get from another act wholesaler, I make sure I'm very thorough in the amount of information that I get so that I can provide good information to the cash buyer on the other side, right? I think that's kind of the worst thing we could do is you get into a deal and you're chasing it for the money and you don't chase it, you know, trying to be, you know, of service and trying to help people. And what you'll find out is in the end, if you don't do it the right way for the right reasons, it's not going to work out anyway, right? And I think the reason why my average deal size is so high is because I do it for the right reasons, the right way, and with a lot of transparency across the board, right? I spend, I would say, probably um, 2 hours a day talking to wholesalers that just got started, wholesalers that are having issues, wholesalers that are in the program, or wholesalers that are not in the program. Spend time mentoring, you know, people. So you have to be of a giving mindset as a wholesaler, um, because if you're not, what happens is that there's so much education in the teaching process,
Mhm.
right? When you're going and you're educating people, you learn a lot about the processes themselves, right? So for me, that's kind of who I am, and from a wholesaling perspective, that's what that you know that's how I look at things.
You know, and I will tell you that some of the time you've invested in us has definitely rubbed off. Your thoroughness in terms of having all of your information in your deal text. That's all I do now. To the extent where you know, when I'm working within the group, they're like, okay, McCray got it all.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm glad that that's something that's and that's for me. I think that's the most important part about, you know, I was talking to a guy yesterday and he's in the group as well. And one of his big things is like, hey, I wish there was some way I could pay you back. And I'm like, pay it forward, man. Find somebody you can help. And I'm absolutely happy with the results. You know, I just want to get you to a deal and I want you to help someone else get to a deal. And I think if you look at it like that way in regards to being a giver in regards to your time, and you get a specific energy that comes back to you that's special,
Mm,
you know.
yeah, absolutely. All right, let me kick it over to Kivo.
All right. My wife was helping me with the lighting.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, hey, you
Yeah.
sound a lighting person. Make sure you pay her well.
Yeah. Yeah. She's good. She's good. So again, I want to thank you for your time because I do know how important everyone's time is. So and how valuable it is. So we want to thank you for that again.
Yeah, no,
Um, I just want to comment on a couple of things that you said. First thing is, being in wholesaling and doing it to help people. And for us, it's how we definitely feel making those connections, because that's what we do as wholesalers. We make connections and hope to help both sides.
right.
And we just did that in Buffalo, Bills Mafia. Yeah, so we just did a commercial property, but it was a guy he's he's a good buyer. He's a what we know in our group as a sticky buyer for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was a guy that had got a building and got in over his head,
Oh, okay.
and thought he was going to do all the renovations himself. Wasn't happening. But we were able to get him out of that, get more money in his pocket than what he initially went in with, and get someone we know can handle the job, a property that he's going to do his thing with. So, and we didn't make a lot of money on that deal, but I felt great just knowing that that building in a city that's my neighboring city that I care about is not just going to be a vacant building, because that's what we deal with a lot. And
Yeah, that's great. That's
you
great.
know, yeah.
That's
So I felt great about that. I'm like, yeah, and like after the summer goes by, I'm gonna come look at the building because I know what he's gonna do. You know,
yeah, that's great.
yeah. So yeah, I definitely wanted to comment on that as well. And then secondly is obviously you knew off the rip the importance of educating and investing in yourself prior to getting into business. So you spoke about mentorships, which is extremely important. Um, what about books though? Can you just drop a book or two? Just throw it out there for our people to
Well,
know, like,
well, two really key two books that are really key, I think, for people is I don't know if anyone's ever read Mama Mentality and understands Mama Mentality, but Mama Mentality was really good. I think the second book that I started reading about 3 months ago was what was the book called? It's called Profit First. And
ah,
it's by Mike McCarroll. But that book teaches you to pay yourself in your business first.
yeah,
I think as a one of the things about wholesaling, we talk about wholesaling being like the gateway drug to real estate, right? One of the things about that is I think most of the people that are wholesalers are first time business owners as well, right? So because of that, I think we have to understand how to set up a business properly, right? How to set up, an LLC with founders, how to set up um, holding companies, how to set up those things, the structure that functions to help us later on in life, right? To help us have our property and our investments flow into a living trust, to protect our family, to have it flow in regards to how we get paid. Those are the things I think that are really important. And as a wholesaler, that's the thing as we enter the business that we have to understand and know, right? It's not a mom and pop anymore. I mean, how many deals are you going to be able to do in your personal name before you take so many hits from a tax perspective that you don't have things as write-off or depreciation to save you money later, right? Those are things that we have to do. We have to get with a CPA. We have to get with the tax attorney. We have to get with a real estate attorney. We have to get our docs checked. We have to have all those ducks in a row. And I think starting out as a wholesaler helps us with understanding those things, right? Because it sets that foundation to the rest of the real estate that we will get into. Because I think it's where we start, but not where we end.
absolutely. Like again, that's where I started at, but my mind is definitely expanded on just being a wholesaler.
Yeah,
I'm getting into buy and holds myself, and I'm probably going to be pretty aggressive on it
yeah,
by middle end of the year, just because of, like you just said, just having that cash flow, having the generational wealth set up, and all that other stuff. So that's another thing we want to put out there to our viewers. Don't view wholesaling as just your end all be all, because
right.
real estate has, I mean, how many different facets you think, Curtis? I mean,
It tons. I think I mean, it's undescribable in regards to how many different directions you could go.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like sometimes I sit back.
One of my goals this year, was to replace my wholesaling income with cash flowing income, right?
Ah.
So one of the big keys to that was what you just said, like the different aspects. I decided in the beginning of the year, one of the things that I'm going to do is I need to do creative financing deals that give me an opportunity to acquire cash flowing assets, right? And to me, it was seller financing, right? So I've already offered on, I think I'm on my seventh or eighth deal already that I've put offers in on seller finance deals, because it's important at some point you need to rest, because when you're dealing with a wholesale business, it's a full-time job, right? In addition to everything else you're doing in life, it's a full-time job. But you have to at some point get to the point so that you can sit back and work on your business instead of in your business, and figure out ways to scale and grow your wholesale business, right? And that comes from generating enough wealth so that you can look at your business from the outside, right? So for me, that's, the creative financing and being able to do seller finance deals is that little bit of nugget for me for this year.
Yeah, I can't stop smiling. I mean, anybody that's out there watching, this guy is awesome, and he's really dropping it to you. And basically, what he's saying is that real estate is a marathon. This is not a quick race. This is a marathon thing, but it's a beneficial marathon, and that's basically what Curtis is dropping to us. And really take heed to what he's saying, because it's deep and it goes way beyond just middlemen and deals and helping people, which is all fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But we want to help. We want to help ours. We want to help everybody and continue to grow that as well. So yeah.
I think people, like there's, like we talked about earlier, there's I think a misnomer about wholesaling, and I think a lot of times when I first got into wholesaling, I used to always say I was an investor, and then a lot of people, but now, right, we're talking about 9-10 months removed from my beginning wholesaling days, is every time I get asked now, it's, hey, what part of what real estate are you in? I'm a wholesaler, right? I'm very clear with people, and I'm not just an investor, but I'm a wholesaler, and it's, I take pride in that, because when you do things the right way, and when things are done the right way, and you come from a system where people do things the right way, you can be proud of being a wholesaler and what it provides.
Right. Real quick, before I pass it to Earl, speaking of the wholesaler and the wholesaler name, you know who the biggest wholesaler in the world is, or one of the biggest? Jeff Bezos.
I would imagine, yeah.
Bezos, and not in real estate, but in life.
Yeah, correct.
Amazon is a wholesaling company. That's what he does. He middleman's deals. He brokers deals. So that was my thing. That's what helped me take it back for me as far as the bad connotation. And I'm like, Bezos is a wholesaler. Everybody loves him. Everybody has Amazon Prime on their phone or orders a bunch of stuff from Amazon. I have some stuff on my porch literally right now. I should literally take my computer and show you guys. I'm going to do it just for because the point is that he's a wholesaler and everybody loves him, but he's doing a good service. I mean, without Amazon, this Christmas would not have been a Christmas for a lot of families.
Right.
It is what it is, and he's continued to grow. Look at this. This is Bezos. See his bag?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and it is what it is. I mean, because with COVID and stuff, and my wife being pregnant, she doesn't have to go out the door. She orders stuff right there. Middleman.
She could do it's now. Things that become more efficient, even with whether you order food, whether you order groceries, you can do it all remotely now. And
exactly.
Like I told you, I'm an engineer as well, so we've been working remotely. We haven't been in that huge corporate office that we spent all that money on in 9 months. So
wow.
The game changed. I think exactly. I think that's what the other part of wholesaling, I think, especially over the last 9 months, is people have had an opportunity to really slow down and think about what they want to do for their futures. And I think a lot of people have invested in wholesaling education as a means to do that, right? And I think that it's been real beneficial for a lot of people that I'm around on a daily basis in regards to, you know, their future plans and how they plan on feeding their family, you know?
Absolutely.
All right.
Go ahead, Earl.
All right. Well, so hey, we're gonna just quickly take a pause for a cause. You know, we got about 30 people on our live right now, Curtis. And you know, generally right about now, what I like to do is just kind of bring up, our schedule for the next couple of weeks. We're getting a lot of, value out of our conversation with you. I'm not sure my screen is showing. Yeah, there it is. All right. So, and the following week, actually coming up this Saturday, we are going to have the Gray Capital Group. This is another one of our sticky buyers that is going to bring a lot of value to our audience. I think they went from 0 doors to 30 doors, and their goal is to go from 30 to 60 this year.
Right. So
And
if you're into buy and hold,
yep.
be here for that because they buy and hold aggressively.
Absolutely.
They're very, every time I look on, they're buying something else.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good.
So Curtis, one of the questions that I always ask our guests is, can you kind of take us back to your first deal, your first wholesale deal? What was the backstory? What was going on? How'd you find the property? Take us through that.
My first deal was the deal that was it was I skip traced the list what was it? It was a high equity absentee owner, out of state owner list on PropStream, and I skip traced it on SkipVault, and I did the texting on Batch, and after about 3 days, I got a reply from someone, and they said, "Hey, I got a property. I'm looking to sell. I'm not in the state. I'm looking to sell because I want to move my money into a 1031, and I want to buy a multifamily with it." So I said, "Oh, okay, all right. Shoot me over the pictures for the property." They sent me over the pictures for the property. I looked at them. I was like, "Wait, does this include the building next door?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's 2 duplexes." Right? And I said, "Oh, okay." So I ran the numbers on it, and it was tough because it was right when COVID hit, and everybody was saying that the market was going to bottom out, and most of the cash buyers that were getting a lot of pushback from the institution, the hard money lenders in regards to the restrictions on what they could buy. So I reached out to Jamil and I said, "Hey, I'm having an issue moving this property. I'm coming up on the end of my due diligence, but I really think I have a deal here." So he says, "Well, just like he does on every call we're on, he's like, well, just reach out to some agents and see if an agent has an end buyer that might help you out." So I called about 150, 200 agents, and I found one agent. He said, "Hey, I have some investors, and they're actually looking to buy a 4-unit property." So the good part about it is that this property had already been with a large wholesaler here in our area, and they had a problem moving it because they got scared during COVID, so they canceled their contract. When I called her, the reason why the seller thought it was a good idea was because I was enthusiastic. It was my first deal. I was, telling her that I could help them out. I got the deal, and when I analyzed the deal, I'm like, this is a great wholesale deal, but the problem was most of the money had dried up. So the only way for me to dispose this deal was to find an agent that had buyers. The problem and the things that I didn't know initially was that I needed to get an extension because it took 60 days to close this deal because, we use cash buyers and they close in 15 days on a lot of deals or hard money, but they needed to get, because it was an agent, they needed 60 days because they use traditional bank funding. Right. And so I had to go through that whole process with them. The good thing is that it was a deal that I locked the deal up at 290, right? I was going to wholesale it for 300 and make money, but the agents buyers ended up making offers on it that was 350, right? So I got 350 for each one of them. So it was like it was a 90K deal for me, right? The wholesale
Wow.
on that first deal. And it was only because I did something different than a traditional wholesaler would do, right? I reached out to Jamil and I said, hey, how would I sell it? Because I didn't have a clue how to sell that deal. And so I reached out to agents, and agents had, they had cash buyers. Well, not cash buyers, but they had buyers that were investors. And the thing about it is crazy. I made that much on the deal. They bought that deal and sold it later and made twice what I made on it, right? So that's one thing, we always talk about, being able to be transparent to buyers. And that's the reason I always am, because one of the things that's really cool about it is that if a deal is a really good deal for the seller and it's a good deal for the buyer, and you have a way to financially benefit from it as well, then it's all good. I mean, I think that's really important to be able to do that, on deals. And that's kind of the story of my first deal and how I wrapped up my first deal.
So, so Kiva, I need you to summarize for our newbies some of the specifics that Curtis did that went against the norm. Because by going against the norm, you will win.
So the first thing Curtis did was got off of YouTube University. And he actually reached out to a real person that's in the business and asked the question. There's nothing wrong with asking the question, because if you don't ask the question, you'll never have the answer. It's just like that. So he asked the question to someone who's our mentor, Jamil. And Jamil, being who he is, gave him a real solid, legit answer on what he would do. And secondly, Curtis actually followed that advice. He didn't just take the advice and say, oh, maybe, or tried it a little bit. He actually went hard. What'd you say, Curtis? You called 150, 200 agents?
150 to 200, yeah, about probably.
Hard.
So he went after it.
Hard.
And going after it got him 90K. So that's really what happened there. That is an awesome first deal. I mean, if that isn't an extreme jolt of energy and enthusiasm to continue in the business, then I don't really know what is there.
Well, what the tough thing about it too is that, doing a deal like that, your first deal, you don't even realize, but my average deal size is about 10K on a normal basis.
Right. So it had the bar up here, like off the screen. I already know what you're gonna say. It had the bar just so astronomical. You probably told your wife, like, man, I'm gonna make at least 50K every deal. And
that's not how it goes.
That's another thing.
But the thing about it is my second deal, which was a micro flip, was $2,500. Right. So I understood after those, I was like, okay, I got to get to this happy medium.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing that, which is
good. Man, that's cool. And I'm glad you brought that point up, man. I'm so glad we got you on here, because you're very transparent and authentic. And the stuff you say, it just flows in. It's just real stuff. What he just said, everybody, is real. Whatever you're seeing on YouTube is somewhat true. There's some truths, but every deal isn't a 20 to 50K deal. Like I said, the deal where I just had to drive to Buffalo to pick up, I had to go physically pick up our check, was $2,100. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It's still good money. Hey. And we helped 2 people out, and we helped the city, because it's literally a huge commercial building right on the corner.
Yeah, that's good.
So it is what it is. It's not a 10K, it wasn't a 20K. So some deals are smaller than others, but the thing is volume. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing
it. I think that's important, what you just said too. I think most people don't realize that. I was talking to an acquisition wholesaler who's in our program as well, and on Friday, and he and I closed 2 deals in Atlanta, but it was his 4th deal of the day. Right? You realize that, like, wholesaling, it's a good business, but it's a volume business, right? Yeah. And if you work, like, because when you close your first deal, if you don't already have a pipeline for more deals ready in the hopper and ready to go, then you're gonna miss out, and you're gonna have some space where you're not gonna have some compensation. So you have to get your transaction coordinator to be, or if you're doing it yourself, to get that deal moving, and then you're on to the next one. You're on to the next marketing. You're on to figuring out how you're going to get the next deal, whatever outreach, whatever you do, but
Right.
you have to be moving on to that next deal quickly.
Right. Talk to him, Curtis, because that's very important. Keeping stuff in the hopper, keeping it going. That is extremely important. You can't just wait on one deal to close and then start trying to market and or do some outreach for the next one because you'll have huge gaps in your income.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. You have some, Earl? Did you want me to go?
Kick the next question, my friend.
Okay. Um, so what I want to ask is because this is something for me that I'm definitely trying to lock down more on is having more of a program and or schedule or ritual. So what's a day like for you, like today or tomorrow, like because you have it somewhat scheduled or programmed out to how you get your things done, like being time efficient, I should say.
Yeah, well, for me, my schedule is top heavy, but it's based on revenue generating activities, right? So
That's what I'm
e-
asking.
every
Yeah.
every night, what I do is I put together a list, right? And it used to be, I'm getting a lot better. It used to be, I used to put together 3 items, right? And it was 3 items that I'm going to do the next day. And then as I started to really understand the business and understand the processes, I just continually added processes. So now I add 20 things to my list every day,
Mm.
right? And then I set a priority to those things that are on that list. It used to be, I used to only be able to handle 3 things a day, but as you do the business more, you start to be able to do a lot more. And in order to accomplish a lot more, you need to have a bigger funnel of things you do as well, right? So I do those, I set those things, I set up the priority of those tasks, and those are the things I do the next day. For instance, I'll give you kind of half of my day to day. I spent the early part of the day scheduling walkthroughs for properties that already have either an option on or that I'm direct to seller on, right? And for me, that takes about 2 hours because not only do I have to do outreach to those individuals, but I have to do that for 10 markets, right? Because I'm in 10 markets currently. So I have to do that in 10 markets and get those scheduled. So once I do those and add those to the calendar in regards to follow up in regards to those, and so that I can track each one of those activities, it usually takes about 2 hours. I spend 2 hours doing from a marketing perspective, doing texting and cold calling, right? And following up and then I take a block of an hour in between there to do Facebook outreach, right? And then I go back and I follow up on those text and cold calls that I've gotten return calls or texts for to communicate with them. The second half of my day usually um, I spend ton of it on communicating with other wholesalers. I talk to about 150 of those a week, right? So I spend time communicating with and following up with wholesalers on the back end. I spend time with education. I spend time in creating SOPs for the business and working on tasks like that. And plus, I still have a W-2, so I still spend time doing that as well.
I don't know if you guys missed all of this, but I didn't because I still have a W 2. He is doing this at such an efficient rate. He still has his full time job, you guys. I know wholesalers that do this full time, Curtis,
Yep.
and they don't have it as methodically organized as you. And they have, you know,
Yeah.
17, 18 plus hours a day.
I'm gonna
The,
tell you.
the biggest thing is planning. You have to organize your day. If you don't organize your day, like I could
Yeah.
I could take you through my, just one of my processes, and every each and every one of my processes is super organized. It's super organized. So I try to do what it would take someone else 7 or 8 hours to do in a 2 hour block, right? And that's the thing that's important. And I hope to soon. I'm in the process of hiring acquisition and VAs to take on a lot of those tasks. So I'll just be working on revenue generating tasks in the business and in the direction of the business. But for right now, it's and that's the thing that's most important as well is how can I ask someone else to do some of these processes that I don't know, right? So I have to be really efficient at these processes and create documentation for these processes so that when I hand them over to someone else to do, they're doing them the same way that I do them.
Right. So what we were talking about, Earl, our partner Ambrose and I were talking about the other day was we plan on just creating the YouTube videos training just to have them ready because we want to scale up as well. So what you're saying, we definitely been thinking about, and we're going to create videos is what we come up with. We're going to create videos on exactly how we do it because obviously we want them to be able to mimic us as closely as possible.
Well, you know the thing too, though, there's a lot of tools out there so that you can really become efficient, right? There's tools like Loom, you know, where you could record the videos and be able to save the videos. You could do the YouTube video. That's another great thing. Everybody across the world has access to YouTube. So if you hire someone in South America or someone in the Philippines, they have access to YouTube. They can go through that. But also there's tools to make that whole process efficient. I don't know if you're familiar with Airtable. Airtable has templates for that as well. So you could put the vendor tools in there, right? Like let's say it was PropStream. You could put all the vendor videos in there and the links to the videos you want them to watch. And then you could document what you want them to learn and the processes for doing that task. But you also, not only can you do that, but you can share that whole thing to, let's say if it's an acquisition specialist or a VA, you can share that whole thing and it's in a template format directly to them. And then you see as they go through that, you could see where they are in the process. And then you can come back when you walk through because I don't mind teaching somebody how to do something, but I don't want to teach them twice.
Right. No.
Right.
So I don't mind giving them the information, but then I want to go through the information with them. Like, so I went through this process when I was teaching my son how to wholesale, right? It's like, okay, so let me show you, let me have you go through the SOPs, and then also let me walk through this once with you. And then if you have issues, come to me and I'll make clarity. Cause that's, you know, as you know, we're in a program, right? So as we learn astro flipping, it's that same way, right? It's a great roadmap for how to do wholesaling. But the problem that a lot of people have with it is that they don't understand that there's some intricacies that you have to learn about each one of those processes to make yourself efficient so that you can be successful. And a lot of people, what they do is they get stuck in those ruts and they don't figure it out. Like, okay, so how am I going to learn where the hot places are, for instance, in the Atlanta market? Well, you learn that by doing a market. But
Right.
most people don't. It's simple, but most people don't do that, right? They don't do the market map. They know about it, but they don't go through it and do it. And they don't take the properties that they get under contract or under option and put them in that market map to see where they fit in there, you know? Because those things are things that help you. Those are the details that we just started this talk off about. Is everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, but the details, they don't spend time figuring those out, because the details are what gets you to helping people, and it is what gets you to the money, right? And if you don't do those details, it's really hard to scale. If you do the details, the process for scaling is very simple. You know, you just need to open up the funnel wider so that you can do more.
Yeah.
So Curtis, I feel just so freaking guilty because I promised I was gonna keep you no more than 40 minutes. And we had a minute 43, and it's like, where did the time go? So we got two more questions, I guess. Just two more. And
no, I'll stay if you have more questions. I'll stay.
Listen, man, this is gone. Just guys, this is free game. I'm not sure you guys are getting this. You guys may want to rewind this YouTube video a couple times. Brother Curtis is dropping some free game, and I hope you guys are grabbing it, because I definitely am. So you know, right now we got about 40 people on our live stream, and Keith, I'm gonna put up a screen. Let our folks know what we want to do to help them out if they have a deal and they don't know if it's a good deal, because we made a lot of mistakes early in, not knowing necessarily if a deal is a deal. So let me share my screen. Tell our folks what they, are more than willing. We're more than willing to help them out with.
Right. So I'm gonna backtrack on that a little bit and just add the fact that we wasted a lot of time with deals, and I know early on, Curtis, you've dealt with it as well, thinking that it was a deal, and it when you get it to the buyer, the numbers don't work, so it's not a deal. So you've invested that time and effort in just not a deal. So what we're willing to do is, if you have a deal and you're wondering if it's a deal or not, and you're having trouble comping it, then shoot it to our email, and you can just hit it up by hashtag need help in the subject line, and then we'll take a look at it and we'll let you know if it's a deal or no deal. And no, we're not trying to steal your deal or anything like that. It's just what Curtis was talking about earlier when we were off air. It's just paying it forward. We're go-givers at the end of the day. I mean, that's what it's about for me. I'm okay with that. I sleep better at night, knowing that I helped someone and I wasn't expecting anything in return. So, a lot of people helped me to get to where I'm at today. So that's where we're at with it. So if you have a deal, you're having trouble comping, or you just don't know if it's a deal, just shoot it over to our email. The email is right there, should be on your screen, and we'll comp it and we'll let you know where it's at and where you should possibly be if it's not a deal with it.
Amen. Amen. So, Brother Curtis, my question is talk to me about how you imagine you leaving what you're building um, to your kids, grandkids, because our last podcast we talked a lot about generational wealth, and the fact is, as typically as Black and Brown people, it's not something that we talk about a lot. Therefore, we don't actually put steps in place to realize that. Um, what's your thoughts on that?
Uh, um, I think it's important to do that, right? It's important to have a living trust. It's important to it's important for each and every one of us to have life insurance. It's important for us to do the things to give our children and our spouses an opportunity to financially have a head up, and that's I think my dad was a was an engineer, and he did really well, but he and I talk about this often. He wishes he could have left me something, um, uh, and given it to me while because my dad's still alive. While he's here, he wishes he would have had something to pass on to me, but he never has had that. Um, and I think having the ability to do that is important, right? So from my perspective, I think what I plan on giving my kids what I want them to have while I'm alive, and then I'm gonna have plans for the rest of my money, because I think the work, in my opinion, the worst thing you can do to kids is give them something when they're not prepared for it. And I want to make sure that I prepare them for it, um, and I put them in a situation where they know what to do with it, right? Because we deal with people with a lot of problems, with properties that have inherited properties, and they've not known what to do with them. They've not known how to maintain and take care of them, or have family members who don't know how to maintain and take care of them. And then the problem is we end up having to help them, help solve that situation by helping them sell that property. And that's unfortunately a big issue. Not only in our community, but in every community. That's a tough one to we could see. I mean, if you go to any what we would call neighborhoods that are what we would call predominantly Black neighborhoods, that's what we see a lot of, right? We see a lot of properties that aren't, and most of it is the properties that we don't own, right? So it's important to, as we start to invest in those communities and we start to think about what we want to do for our kids, is to prepare them for what you're going to leave them. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we see here in Rochester, Curtis, is we get and we've had multiple examples of sellers who have inherited properties, um, but there was no estate planning, and as a result, because they don't know the game, they don't know the system, um, and lo and behold, they have, any like felony convictions. It just gets really crazy trying to get them what's theirs. It's yours.
Right.
You're the heir. And I know one of our goals this year, Lord willing, is we're going to be a part of our local radio station, WDKX. I'm not sure if you remember that station.
I do. I do. My
wanna have
cousin,
a segment.
Ricky used to be a DJ there for 20
Nice.
years.
Nice. We want to have a segment where we're giving game to homeowners, or
Yeah.
that this is what they need to be doing with estate planning, because
Yeah.
that
No, that's
generational
good.
wealth is huge.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think everyone ought, I mean, obviously you ought to have a conversation with your CPA, with your attorney in regards to estate planning. I'm by no means a professional in regards to it. I know what I did for my family, but I think that everyone needs to have a conversation with a professional, to get some advice in regards to, but I think you can get enough information from other people to help you understand some of the things you need to do, but absolutely see a professional to get that taken care of.
Brother Keeble, you have the last question, sir.
Right. Yeah. Curtis, yeah, I appreciate that because a lot of times people neglect the paperwork, and I mean, without paperwork, it's just not legit in this world today. There's no handshake or anything like that that matters if the paperwork isn't basically done correctly and certified. So I'm glad you put that out there. Um, so I just want to, and then we're gonna let you go. I just want to ask you, so how can people reach out to you if they wanted to reach out to you and possibly ask you a question or anything of that nature? Because I know you're like us, are big into helping others. So how can they
Um,
reach out to you? Social
you can
media,
reach
like
out
what's
to
your
me,
Facebook, Instagram, all
yeah,
that stuff?
on Facebook at Curtis Harvey, on Instagram at Harvey_property_group, um, Harvey Property Group on Twitter. Um, you can reach me on Clubhouse at Curtis_Harvey. Um, and you can catch me on any one of those. Most importantly, if you reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, you're liable to get a response a lot quicker. Because I do, yeah. Most of the things that I do is on Facebook. So,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, before I put myself back on mute, we definitely appreciate your time and all the jewels you drop. You definitely put something on me. I have to plan my days the night before, not the morning of. Because
Yeah,
by the morning, the day's already getting away from me.
and you already you already feeling how you want to feel for that day.
Yeah. So that was deep. And I'm really, really gonna take that into consideration and try to put that to use. That was deep.
Glad I could help.
All right. Well, Facebook, YouTube, we're on a couple of platforms now. Clubhouse, we're getting ready to jump on Clubhouse as
Hmm.
well. But listen, this is Earl, and Kivo Ambrose couldn't be here. We're just blessed and highly favored to have Curtis with us today. This is Real Housing Relief, revitalizing the community, one property at a time. Thank you guys for joining us today. God bless.
Thank you, Curtis.
All right, thank you guys.
Right.